Hello everybody, John from Movie Burners here, back with another movie review. Today I'm going to be discussing the critically acclaimed and now Oscar nominated Get Out. Of course received 4 Oscar nominations yesterday for the 90th Academy Awards, and none of them are for any of the technical categories, which is a very remarkable and rare thing indeed, especially for a horror genre film. It's of course directed by Jordan Peele on his directorial debut, and it focuses heavily on the often touchy and uncomfortable elephant in the room that is the racism sadly still present in sizable chunks of Western society today. The opening shot of the film, which involves a young black man being attacked on an isolated upmarket suburban street in the dead of night, really hammers this theme home. And it was an intelligent scene because despite not revealing the identity of the attacker, it featured the symbolism of an all-white muscle car, and it immediately had me questioning the motives of the predominantly white characters surrounding our black protagonist for the overwhelming majority of the film afterwards. Incidentally, the dark visuals and Run Rabbit Run song choice in that opener were damn eerie, a fact only exacerbated by it coming from said white muscle car. Those two things should never be put together, they don't belong together. Much of the story is focused on and fueled by the mixed race relationship between Chris, played by Daniel Kaluuya, and Rose, played by Allison Williams, and later on the uneasy dynamics between him, her relatives, and their incredibly weird friends. Chris has some early fears about the reception he'll receive at the Armitage household, allayed by Rose, who answers his straight to the point "do they know I'm black?" question with a strange remark about her family voting for Obama twice, and potentially a third if they could. That somehow felt like a pointed dig at the false epiphany many thought the US had finally had following Obama's election, and the crushing return to reality following Mr. Trump's. His friend Rod, played by Lil Rel Howery, half-jokingly warns him not to go, and if he had even a hint of what was awaiting him, then I'm sure he would have listened to him. It's really after he arrives at the isolated estate of the Armitage family that things begin to take a real strange turn. Upon arriving, Chris is given a short, cringe-inducing tour of the house and garden by Rose's father Dean, played by Bradley Whitford, who repeats the earlier Obama quip and even slips in an unnecessary story about how he's tenuously linked to Jesse Owens through his grandfather. A flippant comment which takes on a much darker meaning later on in the film. Chris showcased real fears about awkwardness around Rose's relatives before travelling, and he was vindicated at this point. Whilst their welcome was supposed to come across fairly warm and congenial, it was clear they were trying way too hard to convince Chris that they didn't care about his ethnicity or race. As I said before, it's the dynamics of this relationship that fuel much of the growing dread and tension, and not just with the family themselves, but the entourage of friends and acquaintances that arrive in their droves for an annual get-together shortly afterwards. The behaviour of the mother, Missy, played by Catherine Keener, is borderline aggressive in a bizarre hypnosis session which freaks Chris out, whilst the brother, Jeremy, played by Caleb Landry Jones, is an unhinged psychopath with anger management issues. And then you've got the other level of freakiness that is the 2 black workers who float around the house. Georgina, played by Betty Gabriel, and Walter, played by Marcus Henderson, look and act like emotionless, lobotomised robots for the most part of the film, and some of the antics they get up to are truly disturbing and terrifying. And indeed, all of the other black people in the film, and there isn't a huge amount it has to be said, act in the same bizarre robotic manner. One such chap, Andrew, played by Lakeith Stanfield, appears to be incapable of holding a conversation with Chris, and he then seems to have a mental breakdown after Chris's camera flash goes off. And incidentally, he's actually the man from the opening shot who gets attacked, and he's now dressed in ridiculous looking clothing and acting and sounding nothing like the man we've seen earlier in the film. Now, Peele sets this all up very well. The tension is almost unbearable at this point, and the behaviour is inexplicably odd, and things begin turning absolutely crazy in the midst of this strange get-together. If you thought the passive racist, cringe-inducing but ultimately harmless interactions were bad, then the skin-crawling, disturbing silence that befalls everyone in the house when Chris heads upstairs to retrieve his phone is even worse. You'd wish at this point that they were back talking, believe me. Around this point too, there's a weird occult bingo game taking place out in the garden, which Dean appears to be running, and the film takes an implausible pseudo-scientific turn to explain just what the hell is happening. The switch to an almost sci-fi horror genre did slightly disappoint me, I can't lie, but only because I much preferred the film when Georgina was looking blankly at herself in windows and Walter was sprinting unnervingly at Chris from the darkness whilst he was having a sneaky midnight smoke. I guess I preferred the film when it was merely hinting at the menacing motives of the otherwise for polite people. But the sci-fi brain-swapping twist didn't bother me so much to impact my enjoyment of the film any. It was generally speaking well pieced together and it worked well in the context of the film. Peele had to offer a superficial explanation for the bizarre behaviour and bring a conclusion to the film that made sense, and I'm more than sure there was some satirical euphemism in amongst it all, because quite frankly the film is littered with it. In terms of performances, there was a couple of outstanding ones in amongst a very decent supporting cast. Daniel Kaluuya is easily the standout, and he thoroughly deserves his Oscar nomination for his portrayal as the ever-perplexed looking young photographer Chris. I thought Bradley Whitford and Ashley Williams were both excellent too as the villainous father-daughter combo. Whitford looked completely unrecognisable from the man who I was accustomed to seeing popping up in films in the 90s, and Williams' character in particular had a astonishing transformation from an innocent lovebird to a calculating manipulator. I also thought Betty Gabriel was incredible as Georgina. One scene in particular that she shared with Chris stood out. She managed to go through the entire emotional spectrum in about 15 seconds, all the whilst maintaining the robotic persona. After Chris confided in her about his discomfort at all the antics going on around him. And a quick shout out too to Lil Rel Howery. His character Rod brought some much needed comedic levity to the film. It really lightened the tone at perfect intervals, and although it was a little jarring at the beginning and felt slightly out of place, it did grow on me as his character became more prominent in the plot. Superficially, this is a horror film that, as I mentioned, goes batshit crazy after a pseudo-scientific twist, but it's the satire hidden behind it all which makes Get Out rise well above others in this genre. I mentioned in a written review I did last year that it wasn't the best horror film that I'd seen last year, but you know, having watched it a few more times, I have to admit I was talking utter crap. Peele brilliantly highlights the ingrained passive racism which permeates many sections of modern society. He does this by using the most harmless looking group of people you could imagine, the well-off, respectable Armitage family and their tough friends, effectively turning them into vile monsters. They essentially become a visual metaphor, highlighting that this behaviour can and does pop up regardless of age, political beliefs, social standing or class. Most of all though, it is just a fun film, and the gore fest at the end was damn good as well. I highly recommend this film if this genre is your thing. Obviously if you're an alt-right lunatic, then perhaps it's best that you give it a miss, because it's not the film for you. I'd love to give this film a perfect score, but it does sadly have some small and niggly issues for me, which has caused me to shave a little half point off my score, and I'll be giving it a 4.5 out of 5. Remember guys, if you're enjoying the content we're putting out, then be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube and iTunes, and give us a little follow on Facebook at Movie Burner Entertainment and on Twitter at Movie Burners. You can also catch up with all the latest reviews we're putting out at the Movie Burner blog on movieburnerentertainment.org. Until the next time, goodbye.